Act as if everything always works out for you. What if you woke up tomorrow with one simple assumption? Everything always works out for me. Not sometimes, not when conditions are perfect, not when luck is on my side, always. Most people move through life expecting obstacles. They expect delays, rejection, disappointment, and struggle. They prepare themselves for things to go wrong, and then they wonder why life feels difficult. But your experience follows your expectations far more than you realize. The moment you begin to assume that life is working in your favor, something remarkable happens. You stop reacting to every challenge as if it is the end of the story. Instead, you see it as a temporary scene leading to a greater outcome. When a door closes, you remain calm because you know another one is opening. When plans change, you remain steady because you trust that the change is serving a purpose. When circumstances appear unfavorable, you refuse to give them the final word. Why? Because you have already decided that everything works out for you. This attitude is not blind optimism. It is a conscious choice. It is the decision to place your faith in possibility rather than fear. Think about the energy of a person who truly believes life is on their side. They walk differently. They speak differently. They make decisions differently. They don't waste their days worrying about outcomes because they already trust the outcome. They don't spend hours imagining failure because success feels natural to them. Their confidence does not come from what they see around them. It comes from what they have accepted within themselves. The truth is that life often reflects the assumptions you consistently hold. If you expect problems, you will notice problems everywhere. If you expect opportunities, you will begin to notice opportunities everywhere. Your focus becomes your reality. So start carrying yourself as someone for whom things always work out. When challenges appear, remind yourself, this is not against me. This is leading me somewhere better. When delays occur, remind yourself, everything is unfolding at the perfect time. When doubt enters your mind, remind yourself, I do not need to know how. I only need to know that it is working out. The greatest transformation happens when you stop needing constant proof. You stop looking outside yourself for reassurance. You stop asking whether things will work out. You start knowing they will. That knowing creates peace. That peace creates confidence, and that confidence changes the way you experience the world. Today, make a new decision. Decide that life is not happening against you. Decide that every event is moving you towards something greater. Decide that every challenge carries a hidden opportunity. Decide that every setback is preparing a comeback. Most importantly, decide that everything always works out for you. Hold that assumption, live from that assumption, persist in that assumption, and watch how your world begins to reflect the certainty you first created within yourself. Your assumptions shape your experience. One of the most powerful truths you can discover is that your assumptions have a profound influence on the way you experience life. Before any result appears in the outer world, there is first an inner expectation. Before any success or failure, there is often a silent belief about what is likely to happen. Most people are unaware of these hidden assumptions, yet they live by them every day. Think about it for a moment. How often do people assume that things will be difficult? How often do they expect delays, rejection, disappointment, or bad luck? They may not say it out loud, but the assumption is there. It shows up in their thoughts. It shows up in their conversations. It shows up in the way they approach opportunities. When someone expects life to be hard, they begin to look for evidence that supports that belief. Every obstacle becomes proof. Every setback becomes confirmation. Every challenge reinforces the story they have already accepted as true. But what if the opposite were true? What if you began each day with the assumption that life is working in your favor? What if you expected opportunities instead of obstacles? What if you assumed that every situation, even the difficult ones, was somehow leading you towards something better? The moment you adopt a new assumption, you begin to see the world differently. The circumstances around you may not change immediately, but your perception changes. And perception is powerful because it influences your decisions, your emotions, and your actions. Imagine two people facing the exact same challenge. The first person assumes that nothing ever works out for them. They immediately focus on the problem. They feel discouraged. They begin to doubt themselves. They expect failure before they have even taken action. The second person assumes that everything is working out in their favor. They see the same challenge, but they interpret it differently. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? They ask, how is this helping me? Instead of expecting defeat, they remain open to possibilities. The situation is the same, yet the experience is completely different. This is the power of assumption. Many people spend their lives trying to change external conditions without first examining the beliefs they carry within. They focus on changing jobs, changing relationships, changing environments, and changing circumstances. While there is nothing wrong with improving your outer world, true transformation begins within. Your inner expectations create the lens through which you view reality. If you assume people are against you, you will notice signs of rejection everywhere. If you assume opportunities are scarce, you will constantly feel limited. If you assume success belongs to others but not to you, you will unconsciously hold yourself back. But when you begin to assume that life supports you, a different reality starts to unfold. You become more confident. You become more willing to take action. You become more resilient when challenges appear. You stop interpreting every obstacle as a sign to quit. Instead, you see obstacles as temporary experiences on the path to your goal. This shift is not about pretending that problems do not exist. It is about refusing to give problems more power than they deserve. It is about understanding that circumstances are temporary, but your assumptions can shape the meaning you give to those circumstances. Consider how often people talk themselves out of success before they even begin. They assume they are not qualified enough. They assume nobody will support them. They assume the timing is wrong. They assume failure is more likely than success. These assumptions become invisible barriers that limit what is possible. Yet the moment those assumptions change, new possibilities emerge. When you assume that things can work out, you start taking actions you previously avoided. You make the phone call. You apply for the opportunity. You share your ideas. You move forward despite uncertainty. And because you move differently, life begins responding differently. The greatest opportunities often appear when you are willing to expect more from life than you did before. This is why it is so important to become aware of the stories you tell yourself every day. Pay attention to your inner dialogue. Listen carefully to the assumptions hiding beneath your thoughts. Are you expecting success or failure? Are you expecting support or rejection? Are you expecting abundance or limitation? Whatever assumption you consistently accept tends to influence your experience. So choose your assumptions wisely. Choose assumptions that empower you rather than weaken you. Choose assumptions that inspire confidence rather than fear. Choose assumptions that expand possibilities rather than restrict them. Wake up each morning and remind yourself that life is not working against you. Remind yourself that opportunities can appear in unexpected ways. Remind yourself that challenges can become stepping stones. Remind yourself that every experience can serve your growth. Most importantly, remind yourself that your assumptions matter, because the way you expect life to unfold influences the way you experience life itself. When you change what you consistently assume, you change the lens through which you view the world. And when the lens changes, the entire experience begins to change with it. The transformation may not happen overnight, but it begins the moment you decide to believe something greater about yourself and your future. A new life often starts with a new assumption, and one of the most powerful assumptions you can ever choose is this: everything is working out for me. Challenges are a natural part of life, yet most people allow their circumstances to determine how they think, feel, and act. The moment something unexpected happens, they react emotionally. They see a delay and assume they are being blocked. They encounter a setback and assume they are failing. They face uncertainty and immediately begin imagining the worst possible outcome. In doing so, they give temporary circumstances the power to define their entire experience. But what if the circumstances you see today are not the final story? What if what appears to be a problem is actually a bridge leading you towards something better? The truth is that many people suffer not because of what happens to them, but because of the meaning they assign to what happens. They see one unfavorable event and decide that everything is going wrong. They allow a single moment to shape their expectations about the future. When you stop reacting to circumstances, you reclaim your power. You no longer allow appearances to control your state of mind. You understand that what is happening right now is only one scene in a much larger story. Every great journey includes twists, turns, delays, and unexpected developments. Yet most people expect their path to be perfectly smooth. When it is not, they become discouraged and lose faith in themselves. Imagine watching a movie and deciding the ending after only a few minutes. Imagine seeing the main character face a challenge and immediately assuming they will never succeed. It would seem irrational because you know the story is still unfolding. Yet people do this with their own lives every day. They encounter one obstacle and conclude that their dreams are impossible. They experience one disappointment and assume that greater disappointments are on the way. The reality is that circumstances are constantly changing. What seems negative today may reveal itself as a blessing tomorrow. Many people can look back on their lives and recognize moments that once felt devastating but ultimately led them to something far better. A missed opportunity opened the door to a greater opportunity. A rejection redirected them toward a more fulfilling path. A delay provided the preparation they needed for future success. The challenge is that while you're in the middle of a difficult situation, it is often hard to see the larger picture. This is why maintaining your inner stability is so important. If you allow every external event to determine your emotional state, you will constantly be on an emotional roller coaster. One good event will make you feel hopeful. One bad event will make you feel defeated. Your peace will depend entirely on what is happening around you. There is a different way to live. You can choose to remain grounded regardless of appearances. You can decide that your confidence does not depend on immediate results. You can trust that there is more happening beneath the surface than you can currently see. This does not mean ignoring reality. It means refusing to let temporary conditions dictate your long-term expectations. When a challenge appears, most people immediately ask, "Why is this happening to me?" This question often leads them deeper into frustration and self-pity. A more empowering question is, "What if this is working in my favor?" That simple shift changes everything. Instead of viewing the situation as an enemy, you begin looking for hidden opportunities. Instead of focusing exclusively on what has gone wrong, you become open to what might go right. Consider how many opportunities are missed because people react too quickly. They allow fear to convince them that the situation is hopeless. They give up before solutions have a chance to emerge. They stop moving forward because they mistake a temporary obstacle for a permanent barrier. Yet many breakthroughs occur shortly after moments of uncertainty. Many successes are preceded by periods when nothing seems to be working. Patience becomes easier when you stop treating circumstances as final verdicts. You understand that life is dynamic, situations evolve, new possibilities appear, unexpected doors open. What seems impossible today may become achievable tomorrow. The key is not allowing present appearances to destroy your faith in what is possible. Think about the strongest people you know. Their strength does not come from living problem-free lives. Their strength comes from their ability to remain composed when problems arise. They do not panic at every challenge. They do not assume that setbacks define their future. They maintain a sense of certainty, even when results are not yet visible. This mindset creates resilience. Instead of collapsing under pressure, you learn to adapt. Instead of viewing difficulties as evidence that you should quit, you see them as opportunities to grow. Every challenge develops qualities that comfort and ease cannot provide. Persistence is built through resistance. Confidence is built through overcoming uncertainty. Wisdom is often gained through experience rather than convenience. The moment you stop reacting emotionally to every circumstance, you begin to experience greater freedom. You no longer feel trapped by temporary situations. You understand that conditions can change. You understand that appearances are not always accurate indicators of future outcomes. Most importantly, you recognize that your inner state matters more than your current circumstances. There will always be moments when life does not unfold according to your plans. There will be unexpected delays, obstacles, and periods of uncertainty. These experiences are part of the human journey. The difference lies in how you respond to them. You can react with fear and assume the worst, or you can remain steady and trust that the story is still unfolding. The people who achieve extraordinary things are not necessarily those who face fewer challenges. Often, they are simply the people who refuse to let challenges determine their identity or their expectations. They continue moving forward even when evidence is limited. They maintain belief when others surrender to doubt. They understand that circumstances are temporary, but the attitude they bring to those circumstances can shape their entire experience. Every time you encounter a setback, you have a choice. You can see it as proof that your path is blocked, or you can see it as a moment that is preparing you for something greater. You can react to appearances, or you can remain faithful to the possibility that everything is unfolding exactly as it needs to. The more you practice this perspective, the less power temporary circumstances have over you. Instead of being controlled by what you see, you become guided by what you choose to believe. And in that shift, you discover a deeper sense of confidence, peace, and strength that no external condition can take away. The way you think and feel about life has a tremendous impact on the experiences you attract and the opportunities you recognize. Many people spend their days worrying about what might go wrong. They replay fears in their minds, anticipate problems before they appear, and prepare themselves for disappointment. Without realizing it, they are practicing the emotional state of struggle. They become so familiar with doubt that it begins to feel normal. Yet there is another way to move through life. You can begin to think and feel like someone who trusts that life is working in their favor. This does not mean pretending that challenges do not exist. It means developing an inner confidence that remains steady regardless of what is happening around you. It means choosing faith over fear, trust over worry, and certainty over constant doubt. Consider the difference between a person who trusts life and a person who constantly fears it. The fearful person is always looking for signs that something is wrong. They analyze every situation for potential problems. They worry about outcomes they cannot control. They hesitate to take action because they are focused on everything that could go wrong. Their mind becomes consumed with uncertainty, and that uncertainty influences every decision they make. A person who trusts life approaches the world differently. They are not reckless or careless. They simply believe that things can work out. They understand that challenges may arise, but they do not expect challenges to defeat them. Instead of assuming the worst, they remain open to positive possibilities. They carry a quiet confidence that allows them to move forward even when the future is unclear. This difference in mindset affects every area of life. When you trust life, you speak differently. Your conversations are no longer dominated by fear and limitation. You begin to talk about possibilities rather than problems. You focus on solutions rather than obstacles. You stop reinforcing negative expectations through your words. The way you carry yourself also changes. Confidence is not something that appears only after success. True confidence often begins before success becomes visible. It is an inner decision to trust yourself and trust the process. People who possess this kind of confidence tend to walk with greater certainty, make decisions more easily, and approach opportunities with a sense of possibility. Think about how often people delay their dreams because they are waiting for reassurance. They want guarantees before they take action. They want certainty before they move forward. They want proof before they believe. Yet life rarely operates that way. Many of the greatest opportunities require you to trust before you can see the outcome. When you begin to think and feel like someone who trusts life, you stop demanding constant evidence. You no longer need every circumstance to confirm that things are working out. Instead, you develop an inner knowing that remains steady even when results have not yet appeared. This inner stability becomes one of your greatest strengths. Trust also changes the way you respond to setbacks. Most people interpret setbacks as signs that they should quit. They encounter resistance and immediately assume they are moving in the wrong direction. But a person who trusts life sees setbacks differently. They understand that temporary difficulties do not necessarily indicate failure. They recognize that growth often involves periods of uncertainty and challenge. This perspective allows them to remain calm when others panic. While others focus on what is missing, they focus on what is possible. While others become discouraged by delays, they continue moving forward with patience. Their emotional state is not controlled by temporary appearances because they have chosen to place their trust in something greater than current circumstances. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is learning to trust yourself. Many people spend their lives seeking validation from others. They constantly look outside themselves for approval, reassurance, and direction. As a result, their confidence rises and falls based on external opinions. When you trust yourself, you become less dependent on outside validation. You listen to your intuition, you honor your vision, you allow yourself to pursue goals even when others do not understand them. This self-trust creates a sense of freedom because your decisions are no longer controlled by the expectations of others. Trusting life also means believing that opportunities can emerge from unexpected places. Sometimes things do not unfold according to your plans. A door closes, a project fails, a relationship changes. In those moments, it is easy to assume that everything is falling apart. Yet many of life's greatest blessings arrive disguised as disappointments. When you maintain trust, you remain open to possibilities that fear would overlook. You understand that the end of one chapter often creates space for a new beginning. You recognize that what appears to be a setback may actually be a redirection towards something better. The emotional state you practice each day matters more than most people realize. If you spend your days immersed in worry, stress, and fear, those emotions become familiar. They become habits. But if you intentionally cultivate trust, gratitude, confidence, and expectation, those emotions also become habits. Your mind gradually accepts what you repeatedly feel. Over time, trust becomes natural. Confidence becomes natural. Optimism becomes natural. You no longer have to force yourself to believe that things can work out because that belief has become part of who you are. People often assume that trust comes after positive results. In reality, trust often comes before them. It is the willingness to remain confident before the evidence appears. It is the decision to stay hopeful when circumstances seem uncertain. It is the ability to maintain peace while the outcome is still unfolding. This inner attitude influences the energy you bring to every situation. You become more creative because fear is no longer limiting your thinking. You become more courageous because uncertainty no longer feels threatening. You become more resilient because temporary setbacks no longer define your expectations. As you continue practicing this way of thinking and feeling, you begin to notice subtle changes. Opportunities that once seemed invisible become easier to recognize. Decisions become less stressful. Challenges feel less intimidating. You move through life with a greater sense of ease because you are no longer carrying the constant burden of fear. Instead of asking whether life is working against you, you begin assuming that life is supporting you. Instead of expecting disappointment, you expect possibilities. Instead of preparing for failure, you prepare for success. And as this mindset becomes your natural way of being, you discover that trust is not merely a reaction to favorable circumstances. It is a powerful state that transforms the way you experience every circumstance you encounter. One of the greatest challenges people face is remaining faithful to a belief when there is little or no evidence to support it. It is easy to feel confident when everything is going well. It is easy to believe in positive outcomes when success is already visible. The real test comes when circumstances appear unchanged, when progress seems slow, and when doubts begin to whisper that nothing is happening. This is the moment when most people abandon their assumptions and return to fear. Many individuals begin with enthusiasm. They decide to believe that life is working in their favor. They feel inspired for a few days or even a few weeks, but then a challenge appears, a delay occurs, an unexpected obstacle enters their path. Suddenly, they begin questioning everything. They wonder if their belief was misplaced. They start focusing on what is wrong instead of what is possible. Before long, they find themselves trapped in the same patterns of doubt that they were trying to escape. The reason this happens is because people often look to the outside world for confirmation before they allow themselves to believe. They treat circumstances as the ultimate authority. If conditions appear favorable, they feel hopeful. If conditions appear unfavorable, they lose confidence. Their inner state rises and falls according to what they see. Yet true transformation requires a different approach. It requires the ability to remain committed to a belief even when visible results have not yet appeared. It requires persistence. It requires the willingness to hold on to a new assumption long enough for it to become part of your identity. Think about how many beliefs people maintain without questioning them. Someone who believes they are unlucky often finds evidence to support that belief everywhere they look. Someone who believes life is difficult constantly notices reasons why life feels difficult. These beliefs persist because they are repeatedly reinforced through attention and focus. The individual continues returning to the same mental patterns until those patterns feel natural and unquestionable. The same principle applies to empowering beliefs. If you consistently return to the assumption that everything is working out for you, that assumption gradually becomes stronger. At first, it may feel unfamiliar. Your mind may resist it. Doubt may challenge it. Old habits of thinking may attempt to pull you back toward fear and uncertainty. This is normal. Every significant change begins with a period of adjustment. Imagine planting a seed in the ground. The moment the seed is planted, growth has already begun, even though nothing is visible above the surface. If someone digs up the seed every day to check whether it is growing, they interfere with the process. Growth requires patience, it requires trust, it requires the willingness to allow unseen developments to take place. Many people approach their goals the same way they would approach digging up that seed. They constantly search for evidence. They repeatedly check whether their efforts are producing immediate results. They become discouraged when progress is not instantly visible. Instead of nurturing their belief, they weaken it through constant doubt. Persistence means continuing to nourish your chosen assumption regardless of appearances. It means returning to your belief again and again until it becomes stronger than your fears. It means refusing to allow temporary setbacks to convince you that your desired outcome is impossible. There is tremendous power in consistency. Small thoughts repeated every day eventually shape your outlook on life. A single positive thought may not seem significant, but repeated positive thoughts can transform your mindset. A single act of confidence may appear small, but repeated acts of confidence create a confident person. What you persist in eventually becomes familiar, and what becomes familiar begins to feel natural. This is why it is so important to guard your mental habits. The thoughts you repeatedly entertain become the foundation of your expectations. If you continually focus on limitations, you strengthen a mindset of limitation. If you continually focus on possibilities, you strengthen a mindset of possibility. Persistence is not about forcing yourself to feel perfect every moment of the day. There will be times when doubts arise. There will be moments when fear attempts to gain your attention. Being persistent does not mean never experiencing negative emotions. It means refusing to let those emotions determine your dominant outlook. When doubt appears, you gently return to your chosen belief. When fear arises, you remind yourself of what you have decided to accept as true. When circumstances appear discouraging, you choose not to interpret them as final. You continue directing your attention toward the outcome you desire rather than the obstacles that currently surround you. Many of the most successful people in the world have faced periods when their dreams seemed impossible. They encountered criticism, rejection, uncertainty, and failure. What separated them from others was not the absence of challenges. It was their willingness to persist despite those challenges. They continued believing in their vision long before anyone else could see it. Your assumptions influence the way you perceive opportunities. If you persist in believing that everything is working out for you, you begin noticing possibilities that fear would have overlooked. You become more willing to take action. You become more open to solutions. You stop interpreting every difficulty as a reason to quit. Over time, persistence creates certainty. What once felt like a hopeful idea becomes a deeply rooted conviction. You no longer struggle to believe because belief has become natural. You no longer need constant reassurance because confidence has become part of your identity. The assumption you repeatedly return to begins shaping the way you think, speak, and act. This inner shift often occurs gradually. Day by day, your confidence strengthens. Day by day, your expectations improve. Day by day, you become less influenced by temporary appearances and more guided by your chosen perspective. What once seemed difficult becomes easier because your mind has become accustomed to focusing on possibilities rather than problems. The world around you may continue to change, but your inner stability becomes stronger. You are no longer tossed back and forth by every circumstance. You develop a quiet certainty that remains present even during periods of uncertainty. This certainty is not based on blind optimism. It is based on the understanding that what you consistently believe influences the reality you experience. As you continue persisting in the assumption that everything is working out for you, you begin moving through life differently. Your actions reflect greater confidence. Your decisions reflect greater trust. Your attitude reflects greater peace. Instead of waiting for circumstances to change before you feel secure, you cultivate security from within. Instead of allowing doubt to dominate your thoughts, you repeatedly choose faith. Through that consistent practice, your belief grows stronger, your mindset becomes more empowered, and your entire experience of life begins to transform.